Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing well. We're back in the Tech Talks, which is basically a weekly thing that we do where kind of sit about and look at the questions from last week and kind of go through the different ideas that people have and also the general things that people are chatting about. And the reason is so we can get some ideas and also you guys get to have stuff discussed that you're thinking about. So, um, there was a few comments about the kind of videos being really long, and it's like, well, I mean, at the end of the day, the idea is to go through everything, and if it takes that long to go through everything, then it takes that long to go through everything. Like that's pretty much what we do. You know, there's nothing else that can be really done. So let's get into the first thing. If you want your stuff talked about, or if you want your stuff discussed, make sure to stick a comment below the video and then we can go through it next time and then just keep going. Same with on Twitch, since we do live stream the recording of it. So if you are interested in doing it, we can always do it on good old Twitch as well at the end. So the first one is from imom8411. In one of the previous tech talks, someone brought up the idea of a simple sim for air battles, where you're still in cockpit view, but can use normal keyboards and mouse controls. I feel like this would bring more people to play sim, without giving much of an advantage against the people currently playing sim with a joystick or realistic controls, because you would still be in cockpit view with unspotted enemies. I mean, maybe, but like, once again, like when this was brought up, we talked about this before. You have an issue already when it comes to War Thunder with having too many modes. And if you have a look at any FPS or even War Thunder itself, whenever you decide to expand modes in a game, you have a very tough time. You have a very tough time with either populating that area of the game, or it gets filled with bots, or at the same time, you diminish what's going on in other areas. If people really wanted to learn sim and really cared about sim, they could do it in test drive, they could do it in custom battles, they could do it through events that people run, right? The reason why this doesn't happen as much is because there's an overinflated belief of how many people are interested in getting into sim and how many people are actually doing it. So now that the dailies are there and also specials for sim, we'll see what goes on. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be a huge amount of change. So, yeah, if the demand is there, then it happens. If the demand isn't there and has to be artificially created, then that really doesn't help anything, does it? And kind of will make everything just take away from other areas. It's kind of like the World War mode stuff, right? And Naval EC and all that stuff. It's another one of those things that a lot of people talk about, but not a lot of people actually do, so it doesn't really matter. Then we have Kraus. Regarding spawn camping, I like the idea of AT bunkers that can hit the entire red area and not fire outside of it. Give like 5 seconds after the warning pops up. Thanks for the tech talks. I mean, sure, but then people just sit outside the red areas. Most of the areas that you actually spawn camp from are not actually in the red areas themselves. People push into the red areas because they either don't know where they are, or the battle is won so aggressively that you are in those areas. So I don't think that would really do anything, because people just take a step back. If you want to fix spawn camping, from a player point of view, you have to go to the positions where people push through to spawn camp, and then from a gaijin point of view, you gotta rejig the respawn system and work out how to create a game which doesn't give an advantage to somebody for getting the initial kills in the first place, which is pretty much impossible. So yeah, it's nice. It's nice to think about these things. Um, it would be nice. It would be nice to see these types of things, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter because if a bunch of enemies are already in the red area, your team's lost. Like there's no coming back from that. Maybe they could be highlighted for people in the air, but I suppose it would be quite funny seeing people get bonked, but it wouldn't change the match. Like you're still gonna lose. Then we have Keegan Gallop. Hey Tech, just a quick question. In what ways do you think they could improve the air side of the Swedish tree? They could add more vehicles. I don't know. There's two things. They can add more vehicles, obviously, and then also adjust BRs. The other thing they could do is go back in time and make Sweden more competitive in the 1930s when it came to their aviation standards. Therefore, they would have more production and more military ambition in the 40s and then the 50s. But obviously, we can't do that. So the main thing is just literally just add more vehicles or add other nations, right? Because there's a bunch of other nations that could easily be added to Sweden, which would give them access to different vehicles. I don't think Swedish Air is doing that bad either. Like the CAS element is a bit annoying, but apart from that, like most if not all of Swedish Air is completely fine. The J29s are awful, but you know every nation has its blight. Sweden is in a very good place right now, so yeah, it wouldn't. I don't think it needs to be changed. Then you have Light Yakutji again, so I'd like to see Gaijin do a whole update that is fully focused on new maps. For ground, mainly as I'm sick of having to use MBTs on maps like Normandy, new maps would be nice. They're actually doing that. So in one of the updates coming up in the summer, they're rejigging a lot of the maps. They talked about it in the roadmap. There's like 10, 15 maps, something like that they're rejigging. So that's already happening. We'll just have to see when it actually happens. And the changes on the maps were ones that people brought up in the community, and they've decided to rework them. So this is all community focused. This is all pushing it forward, right? So we'll have to see what goes on with it. I'm hoping that one of the issues I have is Karelia isn't one of the ones getting reworked, and neither is Berlin, and those two are easily the worst maps in War Thunder. So at least a lot of them are getting reworked. Like I think they're reworking some Modstock variants, which is good because Modstock doesn't really work very well. But yeah, they're doing it. It'll get there. We have Faith Bampton. I think the Chieftain T95 could appear in an event at some point if it has a point to being in the game, aside from collectability, is another topic. What is the Chieftain T95? When I type this in, just a bunch of World of Tanks stuff turns up. That's not good. Development of the FV4201 Chieftain allowed for the interchangeability of guns with the US T95 tank by means of exchanging turrets. What? The project was discontinued because of numerous problems with training crews to master 2 artillery systems. Okay. Well, that's just kind of weird. And all of the links are busted. So this is just a Chieftain hull with a T95 turret on it. But which T95 turret? Because there's a million T95s. I'd have to look more into this. If it existed, sure. Like it looks weird, but why not? It's a prototype Chieftain chassis with a T95 turret. It just looks so weird. But why not? You know? I mean, they could add it in as an event vehicle or as a tech tree vehicle. Like, if the thing existed, they could just chuck it in, right? Like, it don't matter. It would be cool, though. So then we have Das. I really miss the authentic decals. How do you think about the gunner sight to be an active module? If it gets destroyed, you see some kind of cracks and fragments if you look through it, but not too crazy until it gets repaired. Sure. I think that's kind of the idea of what they wanted to do for a long time. Otherwise, there's absolutely no point in repairing it, right? Like we've just seen recently with the radiator in ground, they finally actually made it have a use, so that you need to repair it now, otherwise it kills your engine. So now I think they'll work on other stuff like that, which, you know, it's something that we've talked about for a while. There has to be reasons to repair stuff, because sometimes you get your optics knocked and it takes like 20 seconds to repair it, and there's no reason to repair it. But if something else gets knocked, then it takes even longer. So it's a bit annoying. So yeah, give it some reason. You know, you don't have to do it too crazy. You don't have to like blur it or anything. Just put a few cracks around things. And if the commander's sight gets like screwed, then you can't use the commander sight or something like that. Like just do something like that. And yeah, I miss the authentic decals too. Anything that gives you kind of a goal to attain in War Thunder, it sucks when it kind of gets removed. And that was one of those things where it was simple, do challenge, get thing, enjoy, right? And that was pretty fun. But unfortunately right now, they're no longer available. So now we have David Garcia. Just want to say these videos and your content in general are great. Always nice to see some kind of civilized discussion instead of whatever it is they do pretty much everywhere else. Monkeys throwing excrement comes to mind. P.S. Can you add Subway Surfers and Minecraft parkour gameplay along with the Wonder gameplay in the background for an extra audience retention? Very true. We need to become Leafy's here, which is, I think that guy's banned now actually. Who are the gaming commentary YouTubers? Wow, did you see the news today? Did you see what has happened? Oh my god. Ubisoft once again has screwed up and they have destroyed the gaming industry again by overworking people by 3 minutes. Yeah. My favorite one of all of that actually was that Yong Ye guy, or Ye Yong or whatever he's called. So one of my mates, he's called Freeman, and he watches all of these YouTubers. And I remember when Cyberpunk came out, and Yong Ye did a review on it, and it was a pre-release review. And he talked about how good it was and how interesting it was and all of that. And it turned out that this guy had been given footage to look at and given like specific builds which weren't exactly what the game was, and lied to everybody about it. And it kind of reminds me of the old verbiage. Just because something or somebody isn't legacy media doesn't mean that they also won't lie to you. And if anything, they have more of a chance to lie to you, because even though there are not a lot of checks and balances in what we'll class as real media, there are no checks and balances when it comes to online stuff. So yeah, very fun and enjoyable that. And millions of people still watch the content because people forget about stuff like, you know, within a few days. Very fun time and really enjoyable. You know, the internet's definitely in a great place right now. Let's see this. So we have Winter's Harmony. I was looking into my favorite aircraft again recently, and it made me think about its place in War Thunder. I love all variants that came out of Project Archangel. While 99% of them were surveillance orientated, the YF-12 was actually an interceptor, of which 3 were made. My question to you is, do you think there is a place in the game for a Mach 3.5 plus aircraft with its only armament being air-to-air missiles? I think I've seen the YF-12, haven't I? The answer is no, just as a point. No, there isn't, because nobody else would have anything close to it. But I think I have seen this one. The other major issue was the missiles with the AIM-47 Falcons, which is always fun. Love me some Falcons, stuff that we've talked about previously. Falcons obviously have their own issues and don't really fit with the whole like server thing. You could easily have it as like an AI vehicle or a single mission vehicle, but there's no way that you could fit this in standard matchmaking. It just wouldn't fit unless the game fundamentally changes, where larger, heavier bombers become a thing, or when stuff like maps get expanded to an even greater amount, then it doesn't make any sense putting these things in. The major problem with them is it's the same. So one of the things you got to remember when making decisions like this is if you make a change to the game, which is to try and fit in something, it then negatively affects everything else that used to use something similar to that. So let's say you're trying to make, I don't know, let's say you're trying to make heavy bombers more viable, so therefore you increase the amount of tonnage that bases need to be destroyed, and also you add more bases. Well, this is really good, right? Because now you've made stuff like B-29s, TU-4s, even stuff like maybe Halifaxes, Lancasters, stuff like that more viable and aerialistic. But what you've also done is you've basically made medium bombers and light bombers completely useless, because now they have a less of effect on a game because there's more targets and they can't take out as many, and then you kind of go from there. So you got to remember that the changes that you put into the game, which are designed to affect a specific vehicle so you can fit it into the game, is also going to negatively affect other parts, which kind of goes around, right? So yeah, it's I don't think it would fit. It's the same thing as the MiG-25, right? Like, the MiG-25 as a vehicle doesn't really make any sense in War Thunder. Does that mean we won't see him? I mean, there's a lot of vehicles that make no sense, so why stop now? And then we have Bam Bam 16? 160? I don't know. My Roman numerals are very bad. Question. Answer. Would stuff like the B-1 Lancer have a place in late Cold War naval or even modern naval when they do come to the game? The B-1 Lancer is a plane, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. The answer is no. Yeah, the the B-1 Lancer doesn't. It's a supersonic capable high altitude bomber. No, it wouldn't. If that comes to the game, then it would never get anywhere near naval BRs. One of the things that has to be oh, it's a low out one. My bad. One of the things that has to be noted is we already have modern machines in naval. So this whole like Cold War naval, modern naval thing, we have a ton of Cold War naval machines, and we have a ton of modern naval machines too. So yeah, the fact is these like you got two things you're running into constantly. Three actually. Number one, it's really fun and interesting to basically just look up stuff on the internet and go, oh, that's really cool, I want to see it in War Thunder. You'll deal with that, and you'll deal with people like that for years and years in War Thunder, and there's no winning, because you can explain for hours and hours and hours why the idea is wrong, why it would never work, and then they'll just forget about it the next day and then start talking about it again. So a lot of these conversations are completely worthless. But at the same time, the major thing, number two, I should say, is what we said previously. If you have to modify the whole game to fit in one vehicle, then you are negatively affecting a massive amount of other vehicles. Number three, which is the main point and has been the main point for the longest time, if you only give these mechanics to one or two nations, then nobody else would ever get played. And this was a point that I brought up 7, 8, 9 years ago, even when I first started playing War Thunder, when the mechanics were a lot less, but also were only available for certain nations. What it basically meant, and what it means today, is you only get a few nations played. And then you have the vast majority of the game just being dead weight to people. And then the new players who come in, they only play those specific nations because they want access to the most stuff. That's exactly what these bombers are. There are a very small amount of nations which made any of these things, and only really one which has gone full force into it, which is, of course, America. Soviets have their own stuff, but a lot of it is nowhere near the level, and Britain has its own stuff, but once again gets dwarfed by America. Right now, we have a problem in War Thunder, and especially in aerialistic, and especially in aviation in general, where pretty much every game at the BR of jets is America versus everybody. Changes like this make that even worse. So that everybody portion becomes zero very quickly. So I don't know. I just don't think they don't fit in the game. You'd have to fundamentally change the game to fit them in, especially in naval. And then you screw everything by doing that. And then also at the same time, it's only available for one nation, so no one plays anything else. It's awful. It really is. It would be horrific for the game if they did it. And they're probably going to do it. So there you go. We have Kilian Drilch, I think is how you say that. It's kind of a fun name. I like that. I think that unguided rockets should get default CCIP in arcade like bombs. Would be a bit more consistent. Yeah, I agree with that actually. I mean, I don't see why they don't actually. Since CCIP is there for bombs, I think it might be a legacy thing. So like bombers have always had the aiming reticle for arcade, but rocket CCIP came in way after that arcade aviation existed. So maybe it's just something like that. Maybe it's just that, but it would be nice. I mean, I think they should. They should definitely add it in for arcade. I was playing a bit of arcade earlier, actually. It's pretty fun. I enjoyed it. Then we have the Angry Historian. Thank you for your insight today. Watch your commentary and you seem to answer most of my questions dealing with console players and gaijin. Well, yeah, I mean, I try to. I can only give my opinions and also what I think is happening, but, you know, it's always nice to go through. But thank you for posting questions or posting thoughts. So then we have Maxwell again. I have an idea to help with some weird non-pens that happen sometimes on things like Panther side skirts and stuff. Maybe they could select a few armor plates on tanks, side skirts, barrels, maybe, etc. that don't bounce shots or don't change the penetration of an incoming round or something similar, so that there will be no more of bouncing on the UFP of a Type 16. Then having DM53 round hit its turret face and do no damage because it lost all pen on the UFP. I mean, I suppose, yeah. Like that could work. You're talking about like ricochet stuff, right? Yeah. I mean, it would basically just mean that armor's worthless, though. One thing I do want to bring up chatting about this, actually, is I think it's very important to look at. One of the things, especially like shooting stuff from the side, so if I use this thing as an example, just quickly, one of the things that is a bit odd is it that, or did they actually fix that? One of the things that used to happen is the track would get in the way of the round. I'm wondering if they still have that or not. It might have been fixed with the good old protection analysis. Good old Weebury. Because that was something that would happen for ages. It seems like they might have fixed it. So it was the idea that one of the problems when shooting in the sides of vehicles, if you hit the track, because the track is so thick, basically the round wouldn't go through. But it seems like it does go through now, so that's good. It was one of those things that would happen a lot, unfortunately. Hey Drip, nice to see you. Whoop. But yeah, they could do stuff like that, I suppose. Don't know how you'd balance it, though, because I feel like a lot of people would call that quite unfair. Because obviously you would end up just kind of having a situation where people would just, call for bias, and well, they would kind of be right at that point. But yeah, I mean, it would fix the issue. It's just what else does it create? So then we have Tacky Chat. Hey Tech, I was thinking about two systems that I would like to see implemented into the game. One of them being based on the player being able to select which compartment you would like the ammo to be stored. What comes to mind would be like the Tiger 1, which put ammo on the driver's side, even when you have less than 10 rounds in the tank in a test drive. Implementing a system like this could help make tanks more survivable and give more customization. I've answered this exact same point on every single tech talk so far. Weird. So, it's fine as long as you could select which compartments you fill, but also understand the further away from the loader it is, the increase in reload speed would be pretty good. Hey A10, nice to see you. So yeah, I think generally that's a fine idea, but yeah, reload times is something that has to be thought about on how it works. The other being the player can toggle or select in game which parts they want to repair in a tank. If Gaijin made a toggle button, they could then switch it to a spawn menu and let the player choose if they want mobility prioritization or armament prioritization. That way, if I were in a T95, I could get my gun repaired first, but I'd also get my mobility back up if I were in an M50, for an example. Toggle button would be simpler to introduce, I assume, but letting the player select what parts to repair in game would be much better. I had a bit more to say, but I thought I'd keep it more concise. Well, fair enough. We're not going to stop doing these, so, always worth hearing multiple things. So, yeah, they could do that. The toggle button stuff works. I thought about the idea of... doing something like you basically prioritize stuff in the options, and then it would do that for each vehicle. But if that wouldn't work for people and they wanted more vehicles to actually do the other thing, which is of course God, my brain keeps forgetting the words. Yeah, so you want the options to be different for each vehicle that you're playing. Obviously, a toggleable thing would make more sense. So either way could work. It just depends on how they want to set it up, or if they want to set it up. So then we have SK, Gunslinger. Tech, your thoughts on what Gaijin was actually testing during the Atomic Thunder event? The new map is obvious, and I would actually like to see it added to the rotation. My thoughts include helicopter-style drones, but what are the mechanics, features, or future aspects of vehicles you think are behind the curtains of the event? The two that spring to mind is the map. The map is obviously just going to come to the game. It's it's a very standard map that we've seen many times when it comes to War Thunder. It's just been like literally picked up out of the queue and then brought forward for this event. So that's obviously coming, and also they have a real track record now of taking these event maps and then sticking them in the game. So as long as it ain't too funky, they'll do it, and this ain't too funky. You even have maps like Middle East, which is a terrible map, but they made it to the game because it was made, and why not stick it in and see what happens, right? The other one is the repair drone, the Pachella, the proximity repair stuff. So I know they already have it in Naval, but they could easily have it in something like ground, where you can create a drone and then it can go near an ally and then it can help repair, and then that way you don't have to push towards the ally to be able to repair. And we do actually have vehicles now like the QN506 that are built to hold drones. So stuff like that kind of mechanic could work pretty well. And I don't see why it wouldn't be a decent idea to have something like that. But also, they could be testing more fire and forget stuff with different missiles. They could be testing I mean, I doubt they're testing anything with the worm. That worm is just a continuation of the other mechanics we've had in the future. Oh, sorry, in the past, with the Arrakis event, and then there was the other one where you had like a similar thing. Even like the naval April Fools back in the day had the Kraken stuff, so kind of a similar idea. So yeah, I think it's the repair drone thing and the map. I don't think there's really anything much else that's kind of crazy when it comes to the thing. Also, at the same time, it's been nice in that mode where, you basically you don't have to pay for repairs, and everyone's trying to do the events. So that basically means that there's a ton of people who are spawning a lot of times, so therefore there's a ton more score around. And they also might be testing the actual challenges for the event and trying to replicate them in other events, which would be nice. That would be pretty cool at the end of the day. Then we have the House of Schmidt. This may be more trouble than it's worth, but I feel like Gaijin could add some more excitement to the introduction of new vehicles. Maybe during the period between updates, we could see one or two next update vehicles as AI or static objects within maps. Imagine playing air in the corner of the map at 30,000 feet. There's a silhouette of a plane that isn't in game yet. So you mean like Easter eggs? Or seeing a not in game ship in naval way off in the distance, or a not in game tank behind a rock in the corner of a map. If you think this would cause issues in matches, then maybe something like this could be done in the test drive. Just a little Easter egg to build hype and break up the grind. I mean, yeah, they could do that. Like, the issue is, it would be found within less than the first day, and the reason for this is because of data mining. So, like, I mean, unless they literally put something which is like a piece of landscape which is in the silhouette of a vehicle like that, but even then it would get figured out super quickly. They do actually put a lot of Easter eggs on maps, which is kind of cool. There's one on the naval test drive. There's actually a kind of a rock, like there's a cave with a fire pit in it, and then there's a bunch of graffiti in certain areas on certain maps, that are around the place. And then also that one of the new Arctic maps, the village actually plays plays different audio recordings, and they did that on Vietnam as well. I think they removed it though. And then also on the Seversk map, the police cars actually make audio sounds. But yeah, there's little trinkets and little interesting things around the place. If they wanted to do more, I'd be fine with it. I don't know how useful it would have been, because the whole idea of hype and advertising is to obviously get people interested in the product. And if it just turns into a bunch of crazy people wandering around maps trying to find like little things, I don't think that's going to really help too much. I think it's probably better to like stick it in videos randomly like they sometimes do. So we have emergency broadcast system. I really wish Gaijin would add more vehicles in the US. 8.3 to 9.7 ground vehicles is like a third of the vehicles needed for a halfway decent lineup. They're either old event vehicles or premium ones. I'm hoping the US is next on the list for getting its SPA line fixed, as Germany, USSR, and the UK all have competent SPA. It must be ours, while the US still have the second largest gap behind France. Sure. I don't really want to talk about it. I'll do it quickly, actually. It's only fair. America has the best cast in the game at mid-tiers. That's why SPAA gaps in the center isn't actually that bad. At the same time, when it comes to the higher tier of the game, America is one of the nations which has got the most stuff out of pretty much everybody, and is very much dominant in many different brackets compared to the competition. Thank you. Then we have Thrawn. Thoughts on adding an infantry element to ground forces. This can be done in RB or Sim, and can be a tier system where if a team controls a capture point, basic infantry members are emplaced at that point. If they control 2 points, they're upgraded to machine guns. If a team controls all 3 capture points, they get AT weapons. This would give players more incentive to break through and play the objectives, preventing the enemy from getting this advantage instead of staying back and just farming kills and losing tickets. They could also be targetable, like in air combat, and medals, camos, and decals could be awarded for killing X amount of them. One of the primo issues with War Thunder and its gameplay is it's incredibly snowbally. So whoever gets the initial advantage in a game, whether it be some kills, whether it be some caps, whether it be map position, which is mainly what it is, usually they win the match, especially at high tiers. Even after all of the economy changes, there's a lot of one death leavers, and there's a lot of people who are not interested in sticking about. So, because of that, what that basically means is you have a ton of situations where if you made that worse, which is what something like this would do, what this would actually do is you would make the snowball effect a lot harder to deal with, and that would be pretty tough. It wouldn't be very fun. I think the opposite would actually be required, because there isn't a lot of incentives, especially at higher tiers, to counterattack, like positions which are already fortified with a bunch of different enemy tanks who have already gained the advantage. So you kind of just sit there and go, well, this is fun, what do I do now? And that's the situation that a lot of people are in, and it's not very fun. So I like the idea of infantry, but as I've said in the past, I don't think they should be active, they should be passive. So if like an SPG or something could drop off like a squad of like 2 people who could like recon an area, like a circle around them, so if anybody comes into that circle, they appear on the map for like brief seconds and stuff. But anything that's active, I think, would just be annoying. There's a lot of times in the past where we've had AI, especially in ground forces. Kursk is probably the bigger one. That went through tons of iterations, where there was different AI. There was like a battle which was literally going on Kursk between like tanks, which were all AI, and then also those SPAAs which were behind each of the spawns, just in like massive lines, and it just didn't work. it just didn't work because it's not fun just driving around trying to take positions, trying to focus on, dealing with enemies. And then what would end up happening is you just get randomly donked by an AI that's been shooting at you for like 10-15 minutes, not being able to hit you, but eventually got you. So yeah, not very fun. I like the idea of passive infantry though, just not active. So we have President, I'll get this right one day. It's President Irina Vladimirovna. There you go. Hey Tech, I've seen a lot of people get upset about KV-1E and B being in the game, but I see no issue with it. Whenever I come up against one, I already know to take out the gun, tracks, and then pop the cheek weak spot, if not immediately firing at the cheek when able to. In my opinion, Gaijin's been adding so much modern no-skill point-and-click vehicles for so long that people forget that tanks are supposed to have different roles. Heavy tanks aren't meant to get easily lol-penned at medium-long ranges, but by pretty much anything outside of a dedicated tank destroyer. I can't stand people too lazy or stupid to learn to fire at tank weak spots. Wanted your opinion on the matter. Sure. I mean, the thing is, if we apply this idea to every heavy tank, you can see that the vast majority of heavy tanks in the game do have decent armor, but also have weaknesses. The KV-1E and B don't. Especially in some of their matchmaking. The issue with the KV-1B is pretty simple. There is a lot of people who use it to noob stomp, and the reason why they're able to use it to noob stomp is the simple fact that it's very good at doing it. So what you end up is stats like this, and I've seen a lot of people with stats like this, even worse stats like this, like 20,000 kills to, 2,000 deaths, crazy high win rates, and in the KV1Bs and KV1Es. And it is literally just because the vehicles are not that easy to pen, but also let's go back to the first four, right? So let's go back to what we were talking about. Well, let's go back to the question. So in order to kill a KV1E or B, you have to shoot its gun, then you have to shoot its tracks, then you pop the cheek weak spot. If you are facing one of these people that I've just shown you, they have aced crews. Their gun will be back up before you've done all those other steps. Also, you're hoping that you're on 0-0 ping. And that weak spot, which is very small, and also bushed a lot of the time, because it's one of those vehicles that's used to abuse people with, right? What happens is you have to be very accurate in shooting, and you can still get screwed by desync. Because the other person might not be where you shot them. Or sorry, that weak spot, which is very small for a lot of vehicles, is not where you shot them. If the vehicle was not overpowered, if the vehicle was not one which is easily abused against new players or even old players, people would not go towards it in order to go after different people in SEAL Club. If you move the thing down to rank 2, it would be a start. But all you've got to do is have a look around the place. When you have a look at what's happened to Germany and their matchmaking BRs, the fact that stuff like the Panzer IV F2 and the Panzer IV G are at 3-3 is criminal. They should be much higher BR. But the reason they're not is because the KV1s exist and the T-34s exist. The Shermans are a good aggregator, but once again they've shifted around in BR around stuff like the KVs. The only thing that hasn't moved in that BR bracket, whether it's gone down or gone up, is the KVs. So when you have something which is affecting the matchmaking so egregiously and aggressively in that area, and it doesn't move but everything else moves, it surely shows that there is an issue or a problem with the vehicles. But what do I know, I've only seen people abuse the stuff for years and seen people just completely annihilate many others over time. And it isn't just noob stomping, because when I'm at that BR, doing stuff like Pages of History or doing stuff like that, I run into them too and I struggle, because once again, ping. You can't always guarantee to shoot the pixel on one side of stuff, especially now with volumetric armor and volumetric shells. So just because one person doesn't have issues with them doesn't mean they're not an issue. Maybe it's the type of vehicles, Think about the 3.0 vehicles facing those. Do you think a PVKV2 can deal effectively with a vehicle like that? And that's pretty much its BR. On a side note, with official esports and just outright fictional skins like the Beehive skin for the Type 10, do you think it's possible that Gaijin might actually add official anime skins for vehicles? Seems like an easy money printer for Gaijin, would make a lot of the player base happy, and those who have a conniption about anime existing can just always disable non-historic skin visibility in the settings. So yes, but the problem with doing anime skins is the vast majority of them in game. Literally, so I have a thing on my YouTube channel, not YouTube, sorry, Twitch channel, where people can request skins. So this is one of them that's been requested, right? On the T98, this Weebery, right? Now, the problem with this is filled with copyrighted imagery. So they would have to do a deal with the guys who create this in order to create a camo for it and put it on the marketplace. And that's a lot easier said than done, especially if you're dealing with different companies, different nations, so on and so forth. Also, at the same time, It's one of those, once you take the genie out of the bottle, it's impossible to put it back in. So they might be waiting for ages to do it at some point when the time is right. Kind of like how they did the body pillow stuff, where, I mean, I talked about that last time about the interesting things that the creator of that stuff has said in the past about certain underage content. But you've got to be super careful with these things. Even stuff like Girls and Panzer. There's literal shower scenes with, teenagers in it, and not 18-year-olds. And then also other, stuff similar, like that bloody boat game and all of those things. There's hypersexualization of minors. And, a lot of people don't like that. So you got to be super careful when it comes to that stuff. And then we have Titanium Meerkat. I think the best way to quell everyone's "hey, I want X country in game" is by added a United Nations tech tree, except you only have that nifty white camo, a blue helmet or two, and have incredibly restricted rules of engagement, or if you break it, you lose immediately. I mean, fair enough. Why not? I don't think everyone's in the United Nations, though, are they? Peace, dignity, and equality on a healthy planet. My God, I love wasting money. Yeah, there's 193 member states. So yeah, you might be screwed out of luck if you're not in that part. But yeah, why not? Sounds fun. This is from Thunderspring. I'd like to see some EC ocean maps for air battles and high BRs. Lots of jets have hooks like the F-14, Tornado, and F-4, among other naval jets. Think Battle of Midway from lower BRs, but upscale to EC, with the more modern AI vessels and carriers. I don't have to think about it, it existed. Boulogne-sur-Mer. One of the funny things for me is how they tried to bring back Volokholamsk. Because when they brought in the map rotation filter, there was 2 maps which were removed. Literally, like, not even a week after, because they were banned so much in the matchmaker that they just would have never seen matches. Volokholamsk was one of them, specifically surroundings of Volokholamsk, and the other one was Boulogne-sur-Mer. Now, Boulogne-sur-Mer was, if you don't know what it is, it's the north of France to the south of Britain. So, the English Channel, basically. And it got banned so much that they had to remove it from matchmaking because you would have never seen it. And you know why? Because this was around when, MiG-21s, Phantoms, like, there was some decently high-end stuff. A lot of people really struggled with managing their fuel economy. So they would just burn out of fuel before they even got halfway through the map. And since, people weren't paying attention, and also you were burning out of fuel before you got to the engagement area, people just couldn't do anything. They were just out of fuel. And yeah, you could manage that better, like that is something that could be done. But it was a very aggressive problem, which is why it was banned. So yeah, we'll have to see. They could always bring stuff in, but also at the same time, the vast majority of jets in the game are not naval jets, so you would have to also have airfields. So it's just kind of how it is and harder to do. So you couldn't just exclusively do carriers. Or drop tanks now? True. Not for every vehicle, though. So now we have Serrano Hunter. Anyone notice the Turkish, Hungarian, and Spanish voice lines being added to the game? Just in case you had not noticed. Yeah, we did some videos on him. It was pretty fun. Like, it was cool. Hopefully we get some more expanded nations. And we have Lipson. Hi, Tech. Last time you said no to add ARBEC and instead play Simulator. However, I thought about leaving current ARBE as it is and just adding option to join the ARBEC just like into Sim Battles. For many people, view lock to cockpits and steering of sim is too much. The ARBEC would benefit people that want to play some BVR in top tier or just simply want something less chaotic than normal ARB. Due to more evenly spread players over the map, also with rotation of the BR, like with SimEC, power creep BRs would have a chance not to face 30G all aspect missiles like Sabres, MiG-19s, Hunters, F-100, Q5. Sure, why not? Just chuck it in. Otherwise, this conversation is never going to end, so it's just one of those. Just go for it. You've beaten me. Here's the actual real response, though. No. If you have a look at the high tiers of the game in War Thunder, you already have EC maps in RRB, so you already have what you want. They're already there. They're just at the higher echelons. I think it's 9.7 plus. So, just go play those BRs. Like the maps, and go play them. You'll find something really interesting if you play them, though, which is kind of cool. Everybody just runs to the center of the map because the average player in War Thunder has ADD. So what that basically means is, like, and this has happened for years. Like, this is not just like an RRB EC thing, but it's just an RRB thing. The two sides, they literally take off and then smash into each other now. That's what they do. That's all they do. There's no tactics, there's no strategy, there's no nothing. Which is why it's super easy to play around. And at the same time, it's just kind of how it goes. So just do that. Like, you could add in these maps. You could create a separate mode for RRBEC. Number one, it'll get taken over by bots. Number two, after it gets taken over by bots, the players who actually exist will just clap into each other. Because that's what they do now in RRBEC. That's what the highest echelon is. It's already there. That's what you want. Just go play it and you'll see. You are trying to force people to play a certain way because that's how you think it should be played. That's fine. And you can do that. And generally, it's a positive thing to do that. But it's also impossible. Because they're going to play how they want to play. And that's how they want to play. So the issue is not with the size on the maps. The issue is not with the matchmaker. The issue is not even with the vehicles. Because they've added all different mechanics to different ones, which should have promoted a bunch of different playstyles. It doesn't. People still play exactly the same way, over and over and over again. What you have to do is you have to deal with the human element of matchmaking, which is something I brought up many times over many years. And that's really hard to do. Because that conversation is a very, very long and a very, very discussion-orientated one, which people don't like. They much prefer easy fixes of flick this switch, flick that switch, alright, we're rolling. But it just doesn't work like that. So then we have Insane Robert. The reason RRB was so simplified, where everyone goes to the middle of the map and does a dogfight, is due to the fact that Gaijin encouraged this method. It's simple, easier to implement, dumbed down, required less strategy, blah 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 da, 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 from players, and the worst part, it favors air dominance aircraft that can engage with ease from multiple angles effectively. It's tailored for a grind gameplay mindset, spawning, kill something, die, return to hangar, rinse and repeat. You get the same reward in this playstyle as you would do if you played more tactically. No more flanking, no more inception, no more stealthy incursions to attack a base behind enemy lines, because the rewarding targets are forced to the center of the map. You do actually make more RP if you do those other things, just as a point, before we move on. This game mode simply became an arena-like game. People still complain when we get bigger maps on top tier jets, because they're forced to actually find someone on the map to kill. Although I find those kinds of maps more rewarding and fun to play. But that's just my opinion. The major downside is when the points on the map are still in the middle, so you can't use the entirety of the map, and you are actually forced to play the same arena type gameplay on a map you have to fly 5 minutes to the airfield in a straight line. I miss those days when search and destroy and incursion tactics would get rewards. Also, naval maps are almost completely eliminated from the game because many army planes would have no place to return to rearm and repair, and instead finding solutions to this. These modes and maps were simply eliminated. Also, torpedo targets almost disappeared from RRB with these actions. Used to have fun dodging flak from ships while plotting a route for a torpedo run. I do agree with the naval targets, which kind of sucks, but the rest of it is wrong. The simple fact is, it's you're doing the cart before the horse or the chicken before the egg thing, whatever you want to call it. The reason why the game became like this is not because Gaijin forced it in this way. It was because it was happening anyway, and then they decided to follow what was happening. When it comes to what event vehicles are picked, when it comes to what the way that gameplay is pushed, like we're having it happen in ground as well now, stuff is becoming more streamlined. It's because they're following what the vast majority of people have said that they want. And also through statistics shown through their battles when it comes to what maps are liked, which ones are disliked, and also through conversations. So it's not that Gaijin is forcing people into this, it's that people were going towards that direction and they facilitated it. Now you could say they shouldn't facilitate that type of gameplay. That's completely fine. But imagine a company turning around and going, you know what? We think our consumer base, which we have millions upon millions of data points on, is completely wrong and we have to go our own way when it comes to these things, especially after 8 years or 7 years of doing the exact difference. Now, I'm a big fan of companies turning around and going, we're going to do our vision. But after succeeding in that vision, then you have to change it to, kind of go for the people who actually play it, right? So it's not the fact that Gaijin is forcing it in these ways. It's the fact that you have the vast majority of people who prefer this mode, and therefore they are facilitating it. And it has massively increased in popularity because of it. Has this dumbed it down? Yes. Welcome to modern society. You ever seen an iPhone and how it works now? It's very fucking dumb, right? It's just how all of this stuff goes. All of the other tactics, though, the flanking, the going around, the changing stuff, they still work. I still do them today. If anything, they're more successful because people aren't looking for them. And the reason why the naval maps were removed when it came to the Pacific stuff was not because the army stuff didn't have places to repair from, right? If that was the case, you would still not have where is it? You would still not have attack on Wake Island or Wake Island light vehicles in this place, right? Like, they're still here, you just never see them because people have them banned. So they're still there. This as well. This is another one, right? Or not this one, but this one, sorry. They still exist. Hey, Pepin, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Wotan. They're still in the game. You just don't see them because they're banned. You even have Norway. Norway also doesn't have, like, any bases that you can land on until this one is captured, which the enemy team can stop. All these maps exist still. They're still in the matchmaker. You just never see them because they're banned. What actually changed when it came to these maps, right, is the fact that they made it so Japanese teams can be on the same teams as America. And once that change was made, these maps died because they removed that element of the matchmaker. And also, these maps are some of the most unbalanced maps in the game on how they work and how you influence them. They're horrific. Especially this one. This is awful how this one works. If you spawn on this one, so you take off from here, right? Then there is a flight of bombers that are coming in that you have to stop, which is bombing your airfield, while all of these guys get an air spawn most of the time and are able to come and intercept you. So if you don't kill the bombers, you die. If you do kill the bombers, then you have to deal with all the fighters who are in better positions to kill you. That map's still in the matchmaker. And it's at the lowest BRs. Which means the newest players run into this. It's awful. But they're still there. Like, you just don't see them because people ban them. Or they're at specific BR brackets. But yeah. You should try some of the old tactics. They still work. If any, as I said, if anything, they work better. So then we have Billy, 92Kid70. Hi Tech, greetings from Finland. Greetings from Canada. I watch your stuff sometime. I really enjoy what you do. Still, I mostly just lurk in the shadows, but there's the thing I've been thinking some time about. Yeah, it's like most people, but it's nice to see discussion points. So my question is, why can't they give us the option to make our own custom ammo belt for planes? Like to get more incendiary rounds for the German machine guns. I mainly play German in War Thunder, and to set a fire with machine guns feel like it's a once in a blue moon type of thing. Also Japan's practice round that do nothing. I really would like to remove, still don't know if it's a balance thing or not, but it would feel better if we could choose our own ammo. Hope you have a lovely day. You too. Hopefully you have a great time. Yeah, I think it's just a balance thing, right? Like, it has to be. They talked about it ages ago in a Q&A, and I think the response was historical and also balance, which is usually like the 2 points that they go for. But also I remember reading stories of Spitfire pilots who would specifically put their own ammunition in belts. Like there was a famous, it was either Canadian or British pilot, which was part of the Battle of Britain, but then also fought in Malta, and he specifically removed all of the tracers from his belts and replaced them with incendiary rounds because he didn't need to aim. And also at the same, well, sorry, he did need to aim, but he didn't need the tracers to aim. One of the things that he also ended up happening is he would get kills, and the kills wouldn't show on the kill cam, that they had in the Second World War. And it was because he was so advanced when it came to deflection shooting. He was able to like hit them way before anybody else could, and nobody actually believed he got the kills until people started reporting that they'd seen it happen, which was pretty nuts. So we do have precedent of stuff like that happening. So my guess would be just a balance thing, or maybe just they haven't built the system for it yet, kind of like these secondary loadouts. Like they screw around with ammo so often when it comes to War Thunder. It can actually be incredibly annoying to deal with because of they're constantly changing how much damage certain things do and how much things move around here and how much things do that. So maybe it is worth like doing stuff which maybe it's worth doing stuff that would also kind of be on that bent. But I'd be fine with it, More customization is positive for people. There you go, George B. Erling. And I'm pretty sure he died like just after the war as well, didn't he? If I remember correctly. Nice to see you, Panzer Mouse. Hopefully you're doing good. And we have Lewis Mark 10. If you got to make your own custom tank or any vehicle you wanted using parts and features currently in the game, what would it be? The FV215B, I think. Let's see if I can find it. The Death Star, as it's known. We actually have pretty much all the components of it in the game, apart from the turrets. In real life, they only made a wooden mock-up of it, which kind of sucks. But yeah, there's a really good tank encyclopedia article on it. If I can just find it. There you go. So yeah, the F215B, sorry, the Death Star. So yeah, this one's pretty fun. This is what it looked like. They actually built a full-scale mock-up of it. They even did its internals and everything, which is quite funny. But yeah, the reason why this didn't really get anywhere is the same reason why the Conqueror wasn't really expanded upon. 80 gems started to exist, so there wasn't really much of a point to do it. So yeah, this thing would be fun. 183mm, modified Conqueror chassis, modified turrets, and obviously other things too. So should be quite nice. We're doing the Tech Talks, Ketsu. So that's what we're going through. Yeah, I'm doing well, Panzer Mouse. Life's good. Can't be mad. So yeah, that would be kind of cool. That and also the Mesa Spit, but that's obviously more of a plane. Mesa Spit would be really cool to see. Very surprised we haven't actually seen it yet. It seems like the perfect like event vehicle or stuff like that, you know? Yeah, it had ridiculous armor as well. The idea was to meld the ideas of the FV4005 and the Conqueror, which is quite crazy. And we have House of Schmidt. Thank you for answering my question about top tier RAB. I can only imagine how many times you've had to repeat the same answer over and over again, so I appreciate it. I'll give CMUC more of a chance. Oh, it's all good. You get used to it after a while. Sometimes new factors do come along, you know, so sometimes it's nice just to talk about different things and have a little bit of fun. So yeah, not too shabby. So then we have Choast. Here's a small one. Do you think smoke artillery should be added? When deploying artillery, you'll be able to choose HL smoke depending on what you need. You could request smoke barrage on X location by opening the minimap and pressing your assigned keybind. Teammates might notice it and deliver a saving line of sight blockage. Smoke artillery could also be used for various extremely healthy purposes to improve gameplay experiences. Deploy smoke artillery to power position X, shut it down. Deploy smoke artillery to street line, allow you to move. Tactically support teammate. Smoke artillery will cover 80 millimeters, blah, 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 blah. So yes, I think they should actually change the standard artillery we have with smoke artillery. It's never really... I don't like RNG factors in games. I understand why they exist, because sometimes you literally can't dig people out of positions, and you got to have some way of dealing with it, especially if you don't have CAS. But if that was the case, then tank destroyers would have artillery, and they just don't for some reason. So for me, I would actually prefer the standard artillery we have to be replaced with smoke artillery. Now, there's a little bit of a problem with this, because standard artillery doesn't always block your view as much as smoke artillery, so you'd have to have a bit of a... You'd have to have like a maximum maybe usage at a time of how many smoke artilleries are allowed to be out. That could be something that you do. But generally, I think it's a better idea to do something like that instead of doing the opposite, which is just keep it kind of how it is. And every so often, you just get mauled by artillery, and there's nothing you can do about it. I destroyed a Leopard 2K the other day with artillery. I got destroyed today by a VK. Neither felt good, neither really felt rewarding. It just feels bad. Like, I don't know how else to put it. So yeah, I'd just do a straight switch. I wouldn't even do like you choose which option you want. So we have Ralph, who looks like a burger with a leg. Here's one that is different from the usual add thing or change the grind. I think the UI, menus, and general sluggishness of the systems in the game are what put me off playing it more. One of many reasons, but many. But anyway, I think looking to the world of games, specifically World of Warships, you can really see the differences in accessibility despite the amount of stuff going on in those games. Overall, the game's menus and UI just feel stale and old, which doesn't help the game itself with all the other tired old systems in the game. The Warbond Shop, like you mentioned in recent videos. Not sure where it ranks in the priority list for Gaijin, but still, if we're looking at player retention, that may be a factor. I agree. Even if it's subconsciously, the way that something looks and also acts is something that definitely affects people's mindset when they come to actually, going with the topic. So, like, stuff like the way menus look is very important. If you compare just a standard list view menu and then you do like an image menu or whatever, the way that different people respond to it will be, vastly different at the end of the day. So it's incredibly important to get stuff like that right. I've talked about it. For me, one of the things that's incredibly important to get right is not necessarily just the general gameplay of the game. I think that's pretty solid in most areas, but the UI, the hangar, and also the general profile does need a bit of a revamp. They did a little bit of it over like the last few updates. You know, the options menu and the controls menu looks a little bit better, but it definitely needs more. I would love to see some kind of profile revamp, and I agree with like the whole seeing like where the dailies are, understanding where everything is on the screen. There is a help function, but it's, you know, the amount of people that is going to remember all the information is very small compared to everything else. They did a Enlisted UI improvement, which looks really nice. Apart from they hid daily tasks behind a bloody click, so it means it's not on the main screen, so you can't see them. So yeah, that's kind of annoying. But yeah, if they followed something like the way that Enlisted does it, I'd be fine with it. You know, it would be nice to see a general difference. But no, it's one of the areas of the game they heavily need to improve. So I'm hoping they do. So we have Alder Caroly. Hello once again, Tech. Thank you for answering my question regarding botting last week. Today on a lighter role, are you going to make a video about how you will personally tackle on Battle Pass challenges? From what I saw, this one is going to be easy as for what you have to do in the game, but at the same time, more time consuming. Funnily enough, I think the most annoying two, at least for me, will be the Blitzkrieg challenge, in which you have to get 15 kills driving at 30 kilometers an hour, because of its RNG nature, and the repair team one, in which you have to get help with repairs or firefighters 20 times. We all saw how it went with the Atomic Thunder event. What will the challenges you'll hate the most? Thank you in advance. Keep up the good content. Thank you. The same. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah, those two challenges look like the worst. The other ones, because I already have the vehicles ground out for them, isn't too much of an issue. I think the whole rank 1 to 7 thing is going to be an issue for a few people, but for me, obviously not. The help with repairing one's just going to be so annoying, especially since it's a more time challenge, and you're just going to have to squad up with people to try and sort it out, and that just sucks. And the speed one, I mean, I remember when we did one of those before, I think I had to switch to arcade and just run around like a crazy person and just hope for the best. And it just didn't feel fun to go through. It felt like you were forcing the challenge to kind of get it done instead of like playing the game naturally and doing it. So the Atomic Thunder one kind of showed the issues with something like that, where you basically have a ton of vehicles roaming around the place, and then you completely shift the meta by making it so certain vehicles are played more because there's a specific market distinction for them. And in War Thunder, you see that happen too around the Battle Pass. But I mean, the speed one, yeah, it's going to be a pain, and So I obviously make the standard video which looks through all the challenges and talks about how I'm going to approach them, but if I feel like one of the challenges is kind of out there and different to a lot of the other ones in how you approach, and I complete it, then I usually do a follow-up video talking about how I completed it and how I push forward. Kind of as well if my original thoughts of what I wanted to do with the challenge, if that doesn't work, like with the bombing one, it didn't work. Like I wanted to just drop bombs in ground realistic, and I thought that would be fine, but I couldn't get far enough away from the area. So instead I had to go to naval, which obviously made a bit more sense. So I felt like I had to make a video about that. Same with like the S5Ks with the rocket one that you had to do. So yeah, I mean, maybe the other one is the caliber one for naval, but I don't think that's going to be that bad. I'm just going to have to remember about it and how to do it. But yeah, the Battle Pass challenges are easier this time. There's just a few which are just a bit annoying because you have to wait for external factors to happen first. So then we have Piotr. What would be great if you told us the best non-premium planes for grinding each of the nations from tier 5 and up. Shouldn't take you too long. What? Whatever the air superiority fighters are at those BRs or ranks. The ones that you see everybody else use that aren't premiums. I don't know. I'm not going to go through like every nation. Like there's 10 nations now. And you want me to go through 4 separate ranks. So you want me to do 40 planes. No. The best way of grinding through nations has been the same since the game came out. Research the vehicles at the ranks. Spade them. Work out which playstyle you like the most. And then follow that playstyle with the different planes. Just do that. I'm going to go through my thoughts about... It's funny because I literally have you have like the recommended things, so I have them on the side, right? And Oxy's video of War Thunder American Ground Forces rank 6 to 7, right? The finale of it, it's just sat there, and it's 4 hours and nearly 20 minutes long. So yeah, stuff like that takes a while to go through. And also, in a week, it might completely change because they're about to bring in a bunch of BR changes. So then we have your boy Nathaniel. To be honest, I don't think BR walls would be the worst thing in the world to happen. For it to work, there would have to be a wall at every BR. Say 0.0 to 0.7. Because if one wall is placed, then people are going to complain about the walled BR not being able to be up-tiered, but can still get down-tiered. I think it would make battles much more fair in terms of what you can and cannot face. Also, I've never seen another player's profile picture that wasn't someone I was in a party with. What? My question, though... Did you not click on their profile? My question, though, is why can't Blue Water maps be made more like Border Warships maps? This is more of an issue with the bigger ships. Maps that offer real cover, and it isn't just shooting into the other spawn from your own spawn. I understand that it's more like how real naval battles were fought, but at what point does realism hinder the experience? The only maps I've found to be kind of passable are South Africa, North Sea, Fiji, Black Sea Ports, and Volcanic Islands. Even then, these maps could still use some work. I don't know. The first part, so let's say you literally put a wall at every single BR range. So basically, if you're at 5-0, you can only play 5-0 to 5-7. And then 6-0, 6-0 to 6-7, so on and so forth as you go through. You could do this. You'd massively increase queue times if you did this. And also at the same time, there are certain BRs in the game which are just not played. And don't have a lot of vehicles at. So you'd have to reaggregate everything to balance that across the way. And then what you would find is everybody would just play the 0.7 vehicles. Because if you know going into a matchmaker that you can either play the lower tier stuff, so let's say you're at 5-0, and then there's 5-3 and 5-7. What is the incentive for a 5-0 player to even play that BR range? Because you know you are guaranteed to get into a match where people are in better vehicles than you have. The only way you would actually get people to play those BRs, like 5-0, 5-3 instead of 5-7, is if they were new players and they were grinding through the ranks. And what would happen there is a lot of people get frustrated because there aren't a ton of people who will, get battered in the face nowadays just to reach that level where they can batter other people. So you would effectively kill the new population So then it would just be 5/7s versus 5/7s, and then there would be no new meat coming through the doors, which is essential to keep a game alive and thriving, and therefore nothing would happen. The game would just slowly die as those people who play that 5/7 area get bored. So yeah, don't think that would work too well. I don't know about the World of Warships map stuff. They could add more cover to naval. I think one of the big issues with War Thunder compared to World of Warships is just the general speed of everything. In World of Warships, stuff is a lot faster, like, you know, destroyers and stuff like that. Whereas if you have a look at War Thunder, it's way more realistic in the way that stuff like, oh, what's the word that I'm trying to think of? So in World of Warships, they have the visibility factor, and then they also have the speed factor. In War Thunder, ships in real life didn't really actually, like, when you went up ship class, it's not as if like destroyers were massively faster than cruisers, and cruisers were massively faster than battleships, right? Like, you could say that they turned easier, obviously, or they accelerated or decelerated, you know, a lot easier or harder depending on what you're looking at. But overall, their speeds are pretty much the same, and that's kind of shown in War Thunder. So that's one of the issues you kind of run into there. The other one is, could they add more cover? Yeah, of course they could. Like, they could lift a map and then see how it works, right? Obviously, people would probably get annoyed by it, but it could happen. I'd have to look more into it. Like, I'm not hugely sure how it would go. Then we have Winter's Harmony. I don't feel like spawning on caps would be great. It just makes it easier to spawn trap. Yeah, pretty much. You just make the game, you accelerate the game, which already is pretty accelerated right now. Right. And then we have Cat Top. Hey Tech, how bad of an idea is it to only give strike drones to people with a full ground lineup, no planes or helicopters? I mean, it's not a bad idea, I suppose. That's why the drones exist. The drone, like, as we talked about, the drones exist for people who didn't want to grind aviation. And once the drones were added, people realized how much of an issue CAS was at specific tiers. But now drones are at the highest echelon of the game, and nowhere else you hardly hear about them anymore. So, simple as, really. They're not really an issue anymore. When was the last time you heard about drones? Because at those BRs, there are much greater threats. So, yeah. I haven't really heard anything about CAS recently at high BRs, actually. It's kind of weird. So, yeah. It's just how it is. Alright. Next one. Silnara. Lately, I've been noticing something weird when I get shot down in aircraft and getting the "you will leave your aircraft in X seconds." The game should throw you out of the aircraft after the time runs out, but I can just keep flying like it's nothing as long as the plane is still flyable. The game still counts it as a death on the scoreboard, where I can still keep flying. I can even go to the airfield, repair and return to the fight, as long as my wings or hull doesn't touch the ground. If they do, I get instantly thrown out of the plane, even with a soft landing on the airfield. Yeah, so one or two things. The first one is that's how it works in air, especially aerialistic, right? So that's how it's all set up. The second thing is it might be bugged, or maybe it's not. I don't know. It is a bit weird, but yeah, it is a little bit odd. Maybe they've added it in to try and promote people getting back to the airfield and saving a repair, or, you know, getting back into the fight, or maybe they've put it in by accident, which is more likely. I think it's fine in at the end of the day. Don't think it really affects anybody. Usually it takes more time to repair and get it sorted than just hopping in a new vehicle anyway. Then we have Daniel Bromwich. Poland could be added to France too. They have close military history with large numbers of Poles fighting in the Polish legions with French in the Napoleonic period. I mean, sure. Looking forward to Napoleon being added to the game. Muskets would be interesting. I get your point, though. Historical relationships are something that's interesting to at least cogitate about. I don't know how relevant they are when it comes to War Thunder, especially with some of the changes made recently. So we have Frixian player. I'd very much like to see more statistics, such as how many nukes, professional multi-kills, etc. I've had so far, just like in good old Black Ops 2. Yeah, more individual statistics for individual players would be nice to see, and I hope in the future they continue to add them. I think it would be really nice if they kept going with it and would continue doing stuff like that. Because why not, at the end of the day? Let's see. So we have Orvis. Can we get timestamps, please? This is a 3-hour video for a multitude of topics. I'm not clicking watching randomly throughout a 3-hour video to find a topic I'd like to hear opinion about. Other than that, keep up the good work. Cheers. No, I won't be doing that. Already, so just to give you an idea. This video in its entirety, the last 2 are 3 hours long. So that's 3 hours unedited. Unedited stuff. So if I decided to edit it, that would take me probably 2 or 3 or 4 days. And then also to get the timestamps for everything would take me a lot longer than that. Probably, well, not the days, but like the hours. It would probably take me 4 or 5 hours. So that means for this piece of content, which makes pretty much no money anyway, you're looking at a return of probably about 10 cents per hour. So just to give you an idea, right? We can actually have a look at the analytics. Just because I know, like I've talked about many times that like I don't do this stuff for money, but there has to be a balance between these separate things, right? Like I can't give up all of my time to specific things. If an individual wants to go through and wants to do it themselves, then they can do. You know, I'm not going to stop anybody doing that. And I'm completely fine if somebody wants to do it, but I personally do not have the time nor the resources to do this. But let's just say overall, so the video that we're looking at right now. So this estimated, obviously, over the period of time of a week, has an estimated revenue in Canadian dollars of $9. $9. So, let's say we have the 3 hours unedited recording. Then we edit it to make sure that we cut out everything that we need to. So that takes another, I don't know, it's probably 5 or 6 hours, and it's probably even more than that if, you know, just talk to people about like editing these things. And then timestamps wise, you could probably do it along, so let's just say 2 more hours. So let's just say without anything else, that's the whole process without thinking about anything is at least 11 hours. So that's 9 Canadian dollars for 11 hours, which is 80 cents. Now we divide it by 2 because YouTube takes half. Then we divide it by 0.15. Oh, sorry, not 0.15. Then we times it by 0.15. Whoops, I fucked it up. How do I, like, redo something? There we go. Then we have to times it by 0.15. Oh my god, why am I failing at this so badly? There we go. Times it by 0.15. And then we have to times it by 0.3. So per hour, out of this, doing this right now, I'm making 1.8 cents. just to like give you a rough ballpark figure. And that is the courteous setup for it. Courteous. So 1.8 cents per hour is what this is worth to me. So in order for extra external stuff to be done, like, there would have to be a change in that. And I know a lot of people would be like, well, you know, if you invest money, then you make money. And it's like, I've been here for too long, man. I already know I already know the stuff that makes money. I know the stuff that doesn't make money, right? Which is why pretty much all of War Thunder content right now is like 2 or 3 types, and it's all very, very sanitary. So yeah. If there was more incentive, and if I had more time in my hands, I would do it. But I have a full-time job, I have a family, I have the stream stuff, and I have all the standard stuff. So it's a no. But if someone else wants to do it and wants to, you know, use their time to do it, you know, you're all more than welcome to if you want. I'll even stick it in the description. Then we have Purple 9969. Someone should make a video on how to use AP in British and French, maybe Italian ground vehicles. For example, I did America and Germany without an issue with the filler rounds, but I keep struggling with Britain, as any round filled there is awful. You have to rely on low caliber AP and precise shots, and I'm still struggling very much so. And a lot of these vehicles are copied into France and Italy. There has to be something more to it. Yeah, sure, shoot for the driver and gunner. So, shoot for the driver and gunner if you're not able to shoot for the ammunition. If you're able to shoot for the first stage ammo stowage and it's generally open on the vehicle, make sure to go through that. If not, driver gunner. They're usually in a line, and if you are on a side profile, shoot for the side of the turret because you'll do the most damage. You won't be able to do really too much with it. Because it'll be able to be mobile, but that's how you deal with AP. Instead of going after like center mass, or instead of just looking to pen, what you have to do is you have to think about what components you're going to take out past it. Which is why I usually say stuff like it's normally a bad idea to like play USSR as your first thing, because you get a very, very bad impression of how most things do damage. So then we have hard attack. Do you think the Avararo will ever be added? Yeah, I think so. I don't know how, but I'm pretty sure it will. The only question is, the only question really is how. But yeah, of course it will. Just like everything, all of your wildest dreams will be added. The only question is how. Then we have Tom Davis, or Davies. Hi Tech, sound effect guy back again, but this time I actually serve a purpose and have 2 questions. Shocker. 1. As one of the few remaining Cold War's players, I obviously would like to see subs in the game. Was wondering when you think they'll be added. Of course they have to possibly add counters first, like you said in your previous video, but I seriously don't know the ASW capabilities of literally any ship in the game, as I'm more of a ground-focused player. I mean, depth charges, and there are a few things with like mortar bombs on them, which are designed for anti-submarine stuff. But yeah, there isn't a ton. When it comes to the submarine stuff, I mean, usually September is kind of one of those areas which is kind of crazy. Hey Levi, nice to see you. Leopard 2 is the best to pick up, the PZ BTL, exclamation mark partner, so you can get a discount on it if you're looking for German high-tier. So, yeah, back to what we were talking about. September is usually an update in a year, which is kind of a defining one. It either adds a bunch of stuff that is a setup for the the November update and then the December update, and usually kind of shows what's going to come in the next little bit, which happens a decent amount of the time. So, in my opinion, if you're going to see subs this year, that's where you'll see subs. You'll see them in September. If they don't come in September, then it will be the first update of next year, because that's usually when they do the big naval changes each year. They kind of get them out of the way at the start of the year. So that would be my guess. But yeah, because they've added a ton of stuff for them over the last little bit, so I don't see why they would stop it. I, along with many others, have a list of funnies I want added to the game, and one of them is the Churchill Avery. Yeah, the one with the absolutely massive mortar on top and a dozer. Do you as TEC reckon this will fit into the game, and maybe even one day be part of War Thunder? Yeah, of course. There's even the one with the spigot mortar, isn't there? Like I'm sure that one will come in as well. Just the big old donkeys, you know. They've added a lot of the donkeys, and now they're adding even more. There's still a lot of Second World War donkeys they need to add, so I'm sure they will continue to kind of push them forward. There's a lot of weird and odd things that are around the place that they could add, and I'm sure they will. It's just one of those time things, right? Like they've already added the Centurion Avery, the M728 or 48, whatever it's called, the CEV, the Sturm Tiger, the Sturm Panzer, Brumbar, you know, and they're adding a bunch of the artillery donkey vehicles. So of course they're gonna add in all the other donkey vehicles. The only question is, do they do them as events, premiums, or tech tree stuff? And it's looking more like events, which kind of sucks. I would rather do it. Then we have the C-76 Caravan. It, comments of a reduction in people having any clue how to play strategic in RRB, died because Guardian went ahead with their annoying and imaginative map redesigns with dumping every air ground unit in the map center on pretty much every common RB map. The previous map layouts were mostly fine, and because they differed from map to map, there was variety and almost more strategy. The only good change from all the map reworking was adding soft targets and the AI aircraft to count for tickets. Seeing how like 30 to 40% of the comments are about independent tech trees, I have to go back to my suggestion I voiced on the first or second tech talk, having independent tech trees but with vehicles receiving alliance tags, which allows combining vehicles from different nations into one lineup. It caters to both communities, those wanting independent trees and those for sub-trees, because it keeps the character of nations. While hidden underneath this solution provides sub-tech tree functionality by being able to close gaps through vehicles from other allied nations. It also addresses the concern voiced in this talk about not being able to combine vehicles from one nation into one lineup. Okay, so we talked about this previously. The research of it would be a mess, because how do you choose what is able to research what? Do you do it like tech tree specific? Do you do it country specific? What do you do with it? And then the other thing that's very much important when it comes to this as well is the thing that I can't remember what I was going to say. What was it? I've completely forgotten. Oh yeah, the UI. How the hell would you design this so it wasn't just a massive clusterfuck? And if you can do those two, which I'm sure you can, sure, fuck, just throw it in. Why not? Might as well do it. Once again, we talked about this in a previous comment. Cart before the horse, chicken before the egg, whatever you want to call it. There was a lot of people who weren't happy with the previous old maps in War Thunder. A lot of them are still in rotation. You just don't see them because people have them banned. So it's a simple fact that people didn't like them, therefore they changed them. It wasn't the other way around. You know. Right. And we have Vascos. You've recently made almost a Why Does Gaijin Hate Nation series. My first question for you is, does Gaijin hate China? Question 2, North Korean subtectory for China, South Korea for Japan. I mean, they shut down the Chinese server more recently, but obviously that could have just been a business dealing with Tencent, and, you know, they just weren't happy with the renewal of it, or maybe there just wasn't enough people playing it, you know, probably a purely business decision. If Gaijin actually truly hated any nation, they wouldn't be in the game. Like, it's one of those things that, obviously it's a little bit hyperbolic, because if you had true hatred of something, you wouldn't want it anywhere near the product that you've created. I don't think they don't like China. They've, over like the last little bit, they've done many changes to try and improve them. They've added a ton of vehicles to them, not just aviation wise, but also ground. And also the Chinese player base is absolutely massive compared to most player bases. But they're not just stuck playing Chinese vehicles, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, I'd be fine with North Korea to China and South Korea to Japan. Why not? Or just do the Great United Tech Tree for Korea. Have a bit of fun with it. We have precedent, literally China. So then we have Army Chris. What is it that is better with the STRF 9040C than the 2S38 and War Thunder? I don't think it is better, is it? Is it like, why is it a higher BR? I don't even know if it is a higher BR. 2S38 is 10.0, and then the 9040C is 10.0. Don't know. I mean, yeah, the 2S38 is a premium, but like, they both basically have the same functionality apart from the lock-on thing in the air. And the real question is that a huge difference? I mean, maybe to some, but to me it's sometimes more of a detriment because of my bloody ping, so I don't know. I think in game they're seen as kind of the same point, and they work pretty similarly. That's why Sweden's super fun to play a lot of the time. Those light vehicles are really enjoyable. Then we have Gabriel Mark. They need to add back landing gear being dead and repairing on the runway so I can become unkillable again. Sure. Why not? I think they should bring back the fact that people have to... they should bring back the fact that people have to actually land properly. How about that? Where if you don't land on your gear, you just explode. How about that? Sound good? Sound good. Alright, let's do that. So we have this. So this is from British Tanker. It's got really dark in here for some reason. Hey Tech, if your plane is on fire, what's the best way to extinguish the fire? Turning the engine off? Going as fast as you can blow them out? Or is that not modeled in War Thunder? It's modeled. The best way... engines in that way are actually modeled pretty realistically in planes. So what you have to do is... So there's quite a few times where my fires go out in... my fires go out on my planes, and people kind of wonder why that's the case. So there's a few things that you can do to prevent it. Airflow is important, but starving a fire of oxygen is more important. One of the ways that you starve a plane of oxygen or an engine of oxygen is by closing your radiator. So what this does on a vehicle is, I think it's only in full realistic or this. If you close your radiator, then it stops the airflow going into the vehicle or going into the engine, therefore cuts off the oxygen supply, therefore you kind of suffocate the fire, right? So if you do that, coupled with dive speed to try and obviously blow out the flames, and then also couple it with turning the engine off so you stop the fuel and the oil kind of going to the engine, all of those help out quite a lot. So that's like the 3 separate things. There's a few other things you can do too. There you go. Radiator, oil radiator, toggle auto radiator. So these are in full real control. So you can actually set them up and in mouse aim you can actually kind of use them. But the thing is, with mouse aim, you have to just toggle control mode. So what I do when I'm in a battle a lot of the times, if a fire gets hit, or if my fire gets hit, then yeah, it kind of sucks. So you can either quickly toggle. So you can see there at the bottom, quickly toggle, and then like you hit the other buttons to like toggle the things, and then you can kind of go from there, depending on what control type you're on. The other thing is if you WEP, this is another one, and you actually have a vehicle with open slats. I should probably show that. No, that's one of the Atomic Thunder things actually. Pretty cool. If you trying to think of one which has pretty prominent things. I'm pretty sure the P47 does. So we could do that. Is it the P? I think it's yeah, it is. Okay, so one of the things, if you have auto like radiator stuff turned on and you're not using those full controls, is you can see here on the vehicle, you can see like the radiator, which is kind of sat there like that, right? So once we get to speed in the P47 and take off, as long as I haven't screwed any of my controls, you can see that if you're wepping, the radiator actually stays more closed than it does open. Now this is just an auto feature, so it's kind of hard to tell, but you can see how it's like moving in and out. Even though I'm doing it like a little bit, it makes more sense at higher speeds. So that's also something you can do. You can leave it on WEP, turn off your engine, and it'll keep your radiator closed like that, and then you can go down. So it's a pretty easy way of dealing with it, like that way. It's not really showing very well on this model right now. It should be though. But yeah. So you can see how it's open, and then if you put WEP, it's like slightly more closed. It's a really small amount. Let's do the LA9. That might be an easier way of doing it. So yeah, like all that stuff is modeled for engines. It's not something that like the way that actually stuff like that is modeled is a lot better than many other games, weirdly enough. But yeah, let's just see if I can show it a bit better. It's kind of hard to see, but you'll understand what I mean when you see it. It's on a lot of propeller aircraft, specifically. If your jet gets on fire, you're pretty much screwed. It's really hard to actually get rid of that. But something like this, which is more based around speed kind of thing, you can actually just close the radiator by having WEP on, which is quite nice. So yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, those are the ways that you deal with it. So then we have Danishakoju. Well, enough of subs. How about the final form of the F-84's the Thunder Screech, with a unique perk called Howl of the Eagle that would damage the crew of any light tanks and open tops by 10% with 30-second cooldown. Sure, why not? Oh wait, it didn't have guns. I mean, I think what we should do, so anybody who wants the Thunder Screech, right? Anybody who wants the Thunder Screech in the game would take them to that room. I don't know where it is. I think it's somewhere in Europe, where it's the quietest room in the world. Let's see. Because there's this place that you can go to, and you're not allowed in for like more than a minute or something. Yeah, and an anechoic chamber. It's in Minnesota, so it's in the Orfield Laboratories in Minnesota. And the longest anybody has ever been in there is 45 minutes. It is 99.99% perfect sound absorbance and holds the Guinness World Record for the world's quietest place. So, whoever wants this, we send them in there. They have to sit there for 10 minutes. And then some massive wrestler dude goes in, puts a gong down, closes the door, and smashes the gong. And then we will see if you actually want this or not. If you want people's ears ripped out. Choast with the second comment, motherfucker. Jesus Christ. What do you think about Research Line Highlights feature? Every month a set of 3 tech tree lines are chosen. The chosen tech tree lines will receive for the duration 5 times RP for first victory. Every vehicle in the research will have 25% of sale duration of the month. So the challenges for the month for the research lines, each chosen line will have a set task that can be completed with vehicles in the research line. So tech tree lines, not the tech tree, only specific line of the tree. This could get people to try grinding out different tech trees, especially minor nations, or boost the ones that are grinding already, depending on which trees are featured. Yeah, they could do that. Sounds pretty fun. Basically just say, hey, we have a bunch of people who aren't using these vehicles. Let's get them involved. Sounds good to me. Like, why not do that? Any incentive to try and get some of the ones which are usually not used the most used. Sounds pretty fun. They could like have they could have like vehicles of the month, and it's like 4 or 5 different vehicles, and they have these attached to them. I mean, why not? Sounds pretty nice. Always into versatility. Alright, there we go. Multiple paragraphs. This is from Rowie. Hey Europe, I agree with almost everything you say, only the tech tree side of things, and put South Korea to Japan, not America, not even when flipping a coin. But I'm going to ask the question about new tech trees. I can already hear you sigh, but I still wanted to ask. Question from me. Isn't it weird that we haven't got any Dutch, Belgian, or Luxembourgish vehicles in the game yet? The Benelux has lots of unique vehicles for ground, air, naval, lots of naval, including submarines, and even helicopters in the updated proposed tree. We do actually have some Dutch vehicles in the game, there's some Belgish vehicle in the game, and also Luxembourgish. They're just copy-paste vehicles. Or the K2, the Cannon boot, is a Dutch vehicle. I'd love to see some Koolhoven, Fokker. We also have some Fokkers in the game as well. Reynard and Shelled planes. It's weird we haven't seen any representation about one of the most well-known producers of aircraft. Same goes for the naval side of things. The Netherlands had a strong navy during the Second World War. We contributed a lot. It comes to naval battles. If Benelux won't be an independent tree, then in what tech tree would they contribute in? The naval side would be really, really big. Same goes for air and helicopters. Tanks would be debatable. Yes, I'm Dutch and extremely biased, but it's weird we haven't seen more Fokkers for any Dutch naval vehicles yet. Same issue applies for vehicles from Belgium and Luxembourg. Luxembourg only has a few vehicles, but it's still a Benelux nation. Perhaps add Indonesia and Congo as sub-tech trees if it really has to, okay? And why does War Thunder sponsor female adult content stars only? I want my Billy Harrington decal and my Type 10 and F4 Kai. Thank you for reading this and replying with the vid. Stay healthy and we'll talk soon. Anytime. I mean, they could do. It's just the fact that the vast majority of the player base is male and can't seem to get a girlfriend. So instead what they have to do is they have to toss it off to some random person they'll never meet on the internet. And then after releasing their stuff, will be very depressed because they'll realize what state their life is in. I don't know why people do it, never understand it, and don't get it. It's much more fun to do other things. I mean, yeah, they could add the Benelux stuff if they wanted. The way that I've said I'd do it in the past is obviously add it to the tech trees that make the most sense. We already have that with some of the vehicles, especially the naval vehicles, and it'll be nice to see more representations of more nations, just not as independent trees. And the Benelux tech tree doesn't make any sense. We've been through it many times. It is a tech tree full of vehicles which either don't fit the game or already are in the game, or of vehicles which are semi-paper or if not paper. There is not enough there for a complete tech tree. There are many tech trees already in the game that nobody plays. Why would you want another one? And yes, national bias is a thing. Just add them as sub-tech trees to people that are already in. So then we have Flume. They need to remove the squad chat delay. Why is that even a thing? It's probably so the game doesn't freeze, because those systems freeze the game quite aggressively. And we have Karam-chan. Since I started prefacing XD, my life became much calmer. I don't get nervous at all anymore. When I'm in counter-stressful situation, I think to myself, XD, and everything becomes easier. I really recommend this lifestyle. It doesn't make me lazy at all. Just a person who doesn't get annoyed out of nothing like it used to be. Losing SL? XD. Hidden ammo and it doesn't blow up? XD. Gaijin again, nerfing economy? XD. Someone spawn camps? XD. Can't pen vehicles? You should be able to pen. XD. And life gets easier instantly, and you can keep grinding instead of crying silently in a corner. Feeling 10 out of 10. There you go. If you just ignore life's problems, you'll be happy. I'm more interested in facing stuff head on. Valeritas. I really hope they remove Airfield AA. It's a massive skill cap right now, because no matter how much you outplay your enemy, they can often just run away to the safe zone, where they can't be touched and reclimb to win the fight. Also, if you've won the entire team fight, but you're on a map with skewed tickets like Poland, you just automatically lose, even if it's 10 versus 1, because the last enemy can circle the airfield and there's absolutely no skill involved in turning the game around that way. The first part, once again, you've answered it with the second part, so you can do it through tickets most of the time, which is a good idea. The second part, I agree. But the way that you fix that is symmetrical matches, which they have mostly done, apart from the AI aircraft, which they should make symmetrical. What you found is you actually have people in the same comments section who are against that. So 2 people who have actually talked about that and said they don't like it. So what do we do? What do we do? I don't know. Who do we pick? Who's the right one? Who's the wrong one? Don't know. Hey, Captain Brody, nice to see you. How have I been playing? Mouse and keyboard, mainly. Oh, how long have I been playing? 10 years. So then we have Daniel Rex. So when do you think Gaijin's going to replace the R2Y2s? They said they're doing it 3 or 4 years now. And what planes do you think will replace these Japanese ones? I mean, they've said they'll do them when a vehicle is ready to replace them. And the only way that could be ready is if they had a sub-tech tree to Japan. Because there isn't a replacement from Japan. Or the ones that people have brought up are ridiculous. So, you know. It'll have to be whenever Japan gets its sub-tree, which will probably be in the next year. Then we have Hawk the Red. Thanks for your thoughts. I still somewhat disagree on some points, but I don't want to turn this into a weekly back and forth. like we were pen pals in the 1800s, and I don't want to either. I'm curious about your opinion or theory on something else. Why do you think it's taking so long for the British light vehicle line to get in? Part of me feels it's because they added the South African line and a lot of scouts, and they think that's enough. I like the inclusion of South Africa, but I don't want to be that guy who thinks they're out to get Britain specifically, and they're using the fact that South Africa has a lot of scouts as an excuse to not add British light vehicle lines. I've got every ground vehicle in Britain and I love them, but there's only so high I can take the Warrior and VFM5 before it just becomes no longer viable even as a scout. I think you're I think you're right. They add, if you have a look at the South African line, it pretty much solved the what's the word? It pretty much solved a lot of the light tank issues at mid tiers for the British, and also one of the things that Gaijin, at least I've seen, have been told about over and over and over again, was adding more and more vehicles to the top tier of the game for Britain because, the Challenger wasn't good enough. So now they've kind of run out of challenges to add. They've pretty much added every single one they have. They can now refocus, right? So I think the South African light vehicles was a stopgap measure for the light tanks, and it worked very well. And now they will end up like putting in these vehicles because they can't go any higher. Like there's nothing left. It's done. It's just finished. So that's probably what's gonna end up happening. I don't see why they wouldn't add the other stuff. The only question is, what do you add? Then we have Bob, or just another Bob. Don't have a wacky question this time, so here's a tongue twister for you. God damn it. Ed Knott was shot and Sam Shot was not, so it is better to be shot than not. Some say Knott was not shot, but Shot says he shot not. Either the shot at Knott was not shot, or Knott was shot. If the shot not, Knott was shot. But if the shot, the shot was shot, not. However, the shot, but not. So Ed Knott was shot, and that's hot, is it not? Well, there you go. I thought Shot got shot, though. Wouldn't that make sense? I was like she sells seashells on the seashore because they're technically like slightly different, right? Where this one is just shot, not. I always prefer those types of tongue twisters. Fun one though. Or pick a piper pickled pickles, like that one. I can't remember what it is, but yeah. Tough. So we have SK again. TEC. After you go back and edit 970 videos that reference auto repair unless you're a free-to-play player. Yeah, I know. Can you give your ideas on unwritten rules of War Thunder gameplay or team play that could improve player experience overall? For example, no seal clubbing new players if you're a high-level player unless you have to play at the level due to a page of history, event, etc. I did actually start writing a list for this one because SK actually brought it in another area, and it's the ideas of respect rules in War Thunder. So kind of like the unwritten code of what to do, and it would have to be. The problem is like there is the War Thunder is like pirates, like there's no codes. Anybody does whatever they want, and at the end of the day, it's just how it goes. But I do definitely want to kind of sit down one day and write some like kind of unwritten ones and how we can kind of go from there and maybe put a bit of respect into the game. But right now there is none and there never has been. Anybody who has said that they want stuff like that, pretty much every time, especially if it is a prevalent figure, has pretty much just been doing it to increase their own sense of worth, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, we're gonna have to think about the repair stuff again. And I mean, there's a lot of videos I've done in the past which like technically the turn off auto repair thing is still kind of correct, but it just depends on how you play the game. But the other thing is that there's a lot of things that we've talked about over the years that have just not worked or have not sorted themselves out, or have been changed over time. So there's a few things I need to update, which is just going to be a pain, but we'll see what goes on. So then we have Omega Mark. 2800 war bonds for tier 2 vehicles is ridiculous. The war bond shop is overloaded with tier 2 vehicles that are pretty much useless for grinding dailies. Meanwhile, we already have 8 tiers. Why are we grinding 3 months for mostly tier 2 beginner war bond units? You were able to get these once a month with the old war bond system. What's up with that? Yeah, I agree. They need to increase the rank of the standard war bond vehicles. We've had increases in ranks of different vehicles, and nothing else has happened. It sucks. It's no good. It's bad. It's not how it should be. But that's how it is. Which sucks. But yeah, it's and the battle pass is supposed to not be for newer players as well. It's supposed to be for veteran players to keep them kind of playing, or mid-level players who want something else to kind of focus on. So a lot of these rank 2 premiums are completely worthless anyway, because most of the people doing the battle pass are people who are veteran players. So yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And they should be upped, or at least they should what's the word? You can't really do much about it, you know, like, unless you just increase the ones which are around. So then we have Islam Ziod. I just watched a video of Justin bullying top tier AA with the Mirage laser missile. We can't do anything about it. Can you suggest a fix? Yeah, go back in time, and whoever is the person who decides to add all these mechanics, make sure that they flip coins over and over and over again to work out if they should have added them. And make sure that the coin is weighted so they don't add any of them. This was always coming, unfortunately. When it came to top tier mechanics, it was going to get to a point where there was so much stuff going on, it would just break the game. And we're at that point now. So Gaijin even said it literally at the start of the year. And even though they said it, and they said it was the biggest issue they're running into, and they're not sure how to deal with it, and it's a constant challenge, they still just keep adding more and more mechanics. So who cares anymore? You know? I play them probably both equally, Captain Brody, at the end of the day. But yeah, it's top tier is a mess. It has been for a long time, and it's going to continue to be a mess going forward, because it's because of the changes that they made. The missile changes they made, just, I don't know, man. Like, goddamn. So we have the Hanger Hobbit. I'm sorry, but it's piss easy to spot the bots. All Guardian would have to do is have a script look at the stats. If they have one vehicle that has been taken out thousands of matches, while the rest have less than a dozen or 2, congratulations, you found a bot. Have a mod watch a couple of replays to look for bot behavior. Yeah, the high-end bots, that's true. But then they'll just keep switching around different vehicles. Most botted accounts don't use one vehicle anymore. They use multiple ones. Like today, we were looking at a WZ I could probably find it actually. Let's have a look. We were looking at a WZ, and I'll kind of show you what I mean. Celebrate one more time. It was abandoned factory, I think. Yeah. So I'll kind of show you. If they create an algorithm like that, which is fine, they could do, then they're just gonna keep swapping vehicles. Because they already do that. So this was a match I played in arcade today because we were doing a arcade match, and unfortunately I got targeted, so I only got 2 kills. But this guy. So this is a bot, right? We'll just watch him for a sec, just to kind of show you what I mean. So he doesn't move, just stares at the sky, and just waits for planes to turn up, and then tries to shoot them. Okay. So this is a bot, right? Hasn't done anything, it's just waiting for stuff, right? Then he turns, but there's still nothing to shoot at. So this guy, he's just, you know, scanning, because it's a bot. If we went into server view, you'd see some really weird stuff, right? So if we have a look at his stuff, Thunder How, level 100. He's played America, Britain, China, and Israel, right? So he's played a lot of air, a lot of ground, and no naval. If you have a look at this guy's stats, right? His stats are abysmal because he bots, right? This whole account is botted. But look at how many different vehicles he's played across the board. So there's only two here which are over 1,000, and one is just over 1,000. Most of them are in hundreds marks, right? So if you have a look at like my stuff, now I play like a metric ton of different vehicles, right? Like that's kind of what I do. So for me, something like this isn't going to be that much of an issue. But if you take away those 2 top vehicles, then and you compare them to mine, we basically have the same amount of battles in different vehicles, right? Now, if the people who are making these scripts get wind of people like this getting banned because they have so many matches in specific vehicles, what's going to end up happening is they're just going to rejig the system so it plays different stuff. And look how much money has been invested in this account, by the way. Like when it comes to different vehicles and stuff. The only ones that's actually been played is the WMA, maybe. But yeah, it's crazy. And also the J8. So, like, they'll just change how it's all set up. Because they're already playing multiple vehicles. They're not just playing one, you know? There's only so many in that kefir because it's trying to grind out the whole Israeli tech tree with it. But they'll just change vehicles once they get wind of what's going on. And find the limits. But yeah. The other thing is, if you nuke that account, which you can do, then there'll just be another one created, which will do exactly the same thing. So it doesn't really fix it, which is why I've said you have to go to the source. You know? So then we have 29 Commando, automatic decals, authentic decorations. Yeah, I probably misspoke. So, authentic decals. Then we have a lot of Wessel. I wish they would just put a timer on planes and RB ground forces, 30 to 45 seconds max. Maybe limit to 2 planes up at a time, frustrating getting smashed by planes right out of the spawn. I mean, maybe, but then you'd probably end up Wait, so like getting counterattacked in the spawn? Is that what you're saying? I mean, yeah, that can be kind of annoying. But yeah, I don't know. It's there's a lot of times where you'd need way more to actually like get to a position to be useful. So I'm not sure. Could kind of work. Don't see why not. Bullet Train is really good, Donny B. But nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing well. But they could go with the timer stuff, and then you don't pay a repair cost if you survive the timer. It would be kind of unnatural because people would just disappear, but they could give it a go. Then we have Black Masakari. I agree with most of your takes, however, you are highly polemic when it comes to these profile pic discussions. We're using big words. What the fuck does polemic mean? Polemic.
Polemic.
A speech or piece of writing expressing a strongly critical attack on or controversial opinion about someone or something. Is polemic against the cultural relativism of the 60s. Okay. Nobody wants a Himmler, etc. Profile icons for the Germans or generals that were remotely connected to the ideological hardliners. On the other hand, you get guys like Schwarzkopf. Tons of nice munitions used in that war and tons of civilian casualties, even decades later from the remnants. There are tons of simple Axis soldiers or low-ranked officers who showed great valor and human decency. I would take one of them over Schwarzkopf any day and stop making bad jokes like imagine if someone likes Himmler. There are people in the world who do like Himmler, unfortunately. The simple fact is, in the eyes of standard people and general thoughts, there is no point in trying to celebrate or trying to commemorate people who are seen as Nazis. Especially when you have 90 to 95% of people in the world who are not okay with this. And also, you have 95% of the other people during the war or during other wars which didn't do what would be classed as problematic things like the Nazis did. There you go. That's about it. I don't know what else to say. There's like it's not really a critical attack, and it's definitely not a controversial opinion either. Like it's the opinion which is held by pretty much everybody. The minority opinion of this is the one which is being expressed to. And it doesn't really matter what people's personal opinions are when it comes to this stuff. It just matters what is written in history and what is followed by law and what is followed by countries. Like, that's it. Like, all you need is one story. Like they did a Bundeswehr profile pic, didn't they? So there's your German stuff if you want that stuff. But it's a simple fact of if you decide to highlight a soldier in the Second World War who was German and who was also tied, if not into the Nazi Party, just imagine the news articles. Imagine the veracity that people would attack Gagin for. You're basically just giving people ammunition to go after them. Like, what's the point? Especially when you have 90 to 95% of other people they could use that isn't going to happen with. Why take the risk? Like, why bother? You know? There's no point. Or just for a very small minority of people to be happy in a video game. That's pretty much it. Like, you've seen in the past Guardian get attacked for stuff they didn't even do. Like, get articles written in such ridiculous ways about them supporting certain causes that they had nothing to do about. And you think that people aren't going to do that again, especially if you give them ammunition? Nah, sorry. It's a worthless topic because it's already been answered by the devs. You know, I can put in whatever opinion I want. It doesn't matter. And they're right about their decisions. Sorry. Right. Well, it's not just illegal in Germany. It's because then people talk about the media thing and the history part of it. It's actually illegal in a lot of other countries as well, which is more important. So we have JD Hogg. Strategy in RB died with the rise of casuals in the game. Yeah, probably. I was actually thinking about it earlier. I think what actually more killed RB, well, not killed it, but, you know, changed the meta, whatever you want to call it, is actually people grinding vehicles for ground forces. Because RB is still the best place to grind a lot of vehicles for ground forces. So you see a lot more strike aircraft, a lot more bombers and stuff like that, or just a lot of premium planes, which they're basically just there to grind other vehicles so people can use them in ground. So stuff like that, I think, is more likely to have killed stuff than the other stuff, you know? Then we have Papa Stalin. Hey chat, I'm in 2 places at once. Can you do that? As for my question for you, TEC, excommunication and trial of Monet when? Monet's pretty cool. I don't think we need to excommunicate him. There'll be a trial, but it'll run by Alex, so good luck. Godspeed. Then we have J Gamer. About team killing, I'm pro for that. I rather call it bots who get in plane killing. You're pro team killing, basically. Now that definitely is a minority opinion. I like that. You know, always enjoyable. Always enjoyable to see the other side, you know. You all deserve to die. Only I live. And we have Caleb Crispet. Never understood people asking for Nazi symbols and stuff, and the game is so supportive of mods and custom skins. I don't know. You'll have to ask them. It's usually down to something like they don't see an issue with it, or they've never met any people who have issues with it, or they don't see what the big deal is, or they just want to see part of history represented. I don't think the vast majority of people who want to have this stuff in the game are sycophantic Nazis or, you know, fascists, even though I have met a few fascists in the War Thunder community, like actual fascists. I don't mean like people I've labeled fascists. I mean people who turn around to me and go, I am a fascist. Like, you know, people like that. Most of them Italians, weirdly enough. But the simple fact is it's just not worth it. Like it's just not worth it, man. It's just not worth it. Then we have Laggies D. Opinion on the Mirage F1C. I know it's shit. Seems alright. It's got really good missiles, not the best flight performance. Every time I get told that a French vehicle is bad, I go play it and it's pretty good. So, I don't know. I got told the Mirage 3C was bad. I got told the Mirage 3U was bad. I got told the Mirage 5F was bad. You know, I got told that all of these vehicles were bad, and then I go play them, and they're good, if not better than most of the things that they're BRs. So, I don't know. I'd have to give it more of a go. Pretty much is that. Well, you wouldn't just risk the German market, you'd also risk a lot of Eastern European countries. That's what's got to be understood. Like, advertising or supporting incredibly hard right-wing groups is illegal in a lot of places in Europe. I know a lot of people talk about Germany, but that's pretty much it, you know. So we have Abby. If you had to, which one of your Twitch subscribers would you marry and why? I'm taking myself off the list for fairness. You wouldn't pick me anyway. Okay. I'd have to think about this one. Polygamy is illegal. So we'd have to put ourselves in an alternate universe. I don't know, man. It would have to be somebody I've known for a long time. I'd probably marry Eurist. You know, Eurist is pretty chill. I think me and Eurist could probably get along for many years. There's also Sarah. Sarah probably would make more sense at the end of the day. Like that would probably work the best. But no, there's plenty of different people. I don't know. I don't think I would ever want to marry anybody to do with this stuff. Not because I don't think there'll be compatible fits or anything. I definitely feel like there would be. But it's just the simple fact that I think it's good to have different hobbies from different people, so you can discuss things and have a bit of fun. It's good to have a common starting point and then kind of go from there. I feel like War Thunder is one of those things which becomes quite big, so kind of takes over the brain. So we have Vito Scaletta, thumbs up. Oh, you see my wonderful little chubby hands. Look at that. It's really annoying because like most of my body is big, and then I got these just like fat little hands. Sausage fingers. And we have Epic Time. Hey man, I really like your videos, but 3 hours is too much. I mean, fair. Like, not everyone's gonna be for everything, but at the same time, the point of this series is we go through all of the comments. So every video, as long as something doesn't go wrong, no matter how long it takes, no matter how much we do, it will be that length. So it will be as long as it needs to be, whether it's 4 hours, 5 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, 50 hours, whatever, right? It'll be that length. Because I think it's important to get through everything. It's important to try and make stuff like this proper, and this is how to do it. Instead of, you know, missing stuff or selectively picking stuff, this is the only raw way you can do this. Then we have Justin with the first, and no bias from Lafouche. Always bias. There's always bias with everything. But that's all of the questions. Not too bad. Do you guys have any questions before we wrap up the YouTube part of the stream? Then we can kind of go from there. A bit of fun. It's up to you guys as always. Anything on the mind before we wrap up today's TED Talk? I request a trial of Monet for the false crime I've been accused of anti-French propaganda. Got thick boy Rogan as always. Yeah, good tech talk. A lot of things talked about. Don't remember a lot of it, but we'll go through it. And chuck it up. Oh my god. It's so warm in this room right now. I'm gonna have to sort that out. But as always, thank you for watching. Peace be with you. See you next time.